Lewis, who had secretly loved Vina for years, was on the phone with her. Vina was strikingly beautiful, just like her name. After breaking up with her boyfriend, she had nowhere to go and begged Lewis to come pick her up, preferably by driving there. Lewis wouldn't refuse such a request from his dream girl. He scraped together all his money, bought a car, and set off alone on a road destined for bad luck. But before he'd driven far, a police car pulled him over. His brother Fuller had been detained for fighting, and Lewis needed to bail him out. No choice. Lewis turned around and headed to the station. An hour later, Fuller and Lewis were on the road together. The trip was long, so Fuller bought a highway radio at a store so they could chat with other drivers to pass the time. Reality proved dull. The radio buzzed only with male drivers, nothing fun at all. After some flat, boring chatter, Fuller suddenly remembered Lewis was good at imitating girls. A new idea sparked. Let Lewis change his voice and chat randomly with those rough guys. When the other party took the bait, Lewis would reveal he was actually a man, definitely amusing. Lewis wasn't eager, but he couldn't win against Fuller's constant persuasion. Hey there, who's this? Rusty Nail. Well, Rusty Nail, I hope you're doing better than I am. Man, this drive seems like it's taking forever. Roger that, Candy Cane. And if I were there, Rusty, you know what I'd do. Tell me. I'd make you feel good. Just as Lewis and the other party were chatting excitedly, the radio suddenly lost signal. They had to end the prank. But things didn't stop there. That night, they passed a motel. It was late, so they decided to stay one night and continue tomorrow. When Fuller entered the motel, he saw a man causing trouble at the front desk. After waiting too long with the guy still talking endlessly, Fuller interrupted him. Unexpectedly, that large man was arrogant. He cursed at Fuller directly and even pushed him. Seeing the man's size, Fuller didn't dare fight back and returned to the car, unhappy. Right then, Neil's voice came through the wireless radio again. Fuller immediately thought of an excellent idea. Lure Nail over, then make him enter the room where the large man was staying. With Nail fighting the large man, there'd be a good show. So Lewis opened the radio again and lured Nail to room 17, where the large man was. After everything was agreed, Lewis and his brother stayed in room 18. Not knowing how much time passed, the two chatting suddenly heard a commotion outside. Fuller ran to check, and yes, the person who arrived was Nell. Soon after, urgent knocking came from the next room, followed by arguments and crashing sounds. Then complete silence. Feeling the situation was wrong, Lewis urgently dialed the front desk and reported what happened in room 17. A while later, the front desk called back saying everything was normal. The two finally relaxed. But early the next morning, police suddenly came to their door. The large man from last night really had an accident, knocked unconscious and dumped by the roadside, his condition miserable. Since an incident occurred, they didn't hide it anymore and told the police the whole story from beginning to end. Because they didn't directly participate in the assault, police couldn't detain them, and eventually the two were kicked out by the police. Soon night fell again. Feeling bored, they turned the wireless radio on once more. Unexpectedly, N's voice appeared inside again. Seeing the other party still looking for them, Lewis decided to confess everything to N to end this farce. Nil was reasonable, stating that as long as they apologized sincerely, everything would be treated as if it never happened. But when Fuller heard about apologizing, he immediately lost his temper. You're no black sheep. You really ought to get that fixed. Get what fixed? Your tail light. N was following right behind them. The two panicked. If caught, they'd surely be beaten terribly. Lewis intended to accelerate to shake off the other party, not expecting the car's fuel tank was nearly empty. Just as they were at a loss, a ramp suddenly appeared ahead. Lewis took the chance to make a sharp turn into it, successfully losing the truck behind. Not long after, the two arrived at a service area. While Fuller refueled, Lewis quickly went into the convenience store to call the police. At this time, an ice delivery truck also followed them here. Immediately after, a man walked down from the vehicle holding a weapon. Seeing this, Fuller thought he was Nail and quickly waved his hand to signal Lewis. Lewis turned his head and found the man walking quickly toward him. Having no choice, he hung up the phone, paid the bill, and left. But unexpectedly, before they'd gone far, that truck suddenly chased after them. In panic, Lewis drove directly into a dead end, finally stopping in front of a farm gate. At this time, the truck behind also stopped. Then that man came to the side of their car. Only when he took out Lewis's credit card did they finally realize this whole thing was a misunderstanding. His pursuit was merely to return the credit card Lewis had just lost. After the man left, the two finally put their hearts at ease. Who would have known that at this moment a truck suddenly appeared and directly crashed through their utility vehicle? It turned out the person driving this truck was the real Nail. Seeing this, the two quickly got into the car to flee. They crashed through the iron gate and drove straight ahead while the truck chased relentlessly behind. Seeing that the truck was about to collide, Lewis suddenly executed a drift, successfully escaping pursuit. Although the truck was avoided, their car got stuck in a mud pit and couldn't move. Just as the two were arguing, the truck crashed toward them again. Trapped in the car, they could only watch helplessly as the vehicle was gradually crushed flat. In the moment of extreme danger, Fuller picked up the walkie-talkie in the car. Just playing with you, man. Unexpectedly, after N finished speaking, he directly reversed and left. They managed to escape death once again, just like this. After dawn, they came to a repair shop, fixed the car, and continued their journey. This time, Fuller completely admitted defeat, choosing to throw the wireless radio directly out of the car window. After a journey full of twists and turns, Lewis finally successfully met Vina. Seeing Vina, they both fell in love with her in their hearts. To not make Vina worry, the two did not mention the encounters they had experienced before. The three embarked on the return trip, and soon night fell. The three stayed in a motel once again. After spending a day together, Fuller was completely attracted by Vina. While Lewis was fast asleep, Fuller took a few cups of strong liquor and secretly ran into Vina's room. After drinking a few cups of strong liquor, Vina's eyes began to look blurred. At the same time, Lewis, on the other side, was sleeping, completely unaware that his girl was about to be taken away. At this moment, the telephone in the room suddenly rang. Lewis, who was dazed, was instantly shocked into a cold sweat, realizing that this nail had actually been tracking them all the time. In a panic, Lewis hurriedly rushed into Vina's room. Sure enough, Fuller was staying together with Vina, and Lewis did not think too much, quickly telling Fuller what had just happened. The two did not dare to delay any longer and directly pulled Vina, who did not know what was happening, out of the motel. On the road, Lewis explained the whole story to Vina. Meanwhile, Fuller, who was driving, saw a road sign that had been spray painted, and the combined meaning was "Please open the trunk." So, Fuller immediately stopped the car to check, and unexpectedly, the lost wireless radio was placed inside. Clearly, Nell's intention was to have them reinstall it. Sure enough, after connecting the wireless radio, Nell's voice appeared in the walkie-talkie, but Nell's words made Vina's blood run cold, as he had actually captured Vina's close friend, Charlotte. Then Nail stated that the three must act according to his instructions, otherwise he would end Charlotte's life. Having no choice, the three could only listen and obey helplessly. Promptly, Neil demanded that they get off at the next gas station and then had the two brothers stripped naked to go into the restaurant to buy hamburgers. As for Vina, she was to stay in the car and wait. After leaving the restaurant, Neil had them go to a wasteland and then get out of the car to walk 30 in. Completed the instruction, Neil drove the truck to this place. However, soon the three realized that things were not quite right as the other party actually drove directly toward them without slowing down at all. With no other choice, the three could only hide into the nearby cornfield. After a round of extreme evasion, Vina somehow lost track of the group, and the two brothers instantly broke into an argument. And just at this moment, the two suddenly saw flames lighting up not far away. They walked closer to check and found that the car was on fire. At the exact same time, Vina's screams echoed from the wireless radio inside the car. It turned out that Nil had already captured Vina, and then Nail stated that if they wanted to rescue these two women, they must rush to the motel in the next town, room 17, before midnight. At this time, Lewis's car had already been destroyed, and walking a distance of over 10 kilometers was simply impossible. Fortunately, Fuller knew how to steal a car, but when the two successfully rushed to the town, they panicked because there were motels everywhere here, and they had no idea which room Nil was in. In a desperate situation, the two could only search room by room. Meanwhile, Nail on the other side also began his operation. He tied Vina to a chair, nailed the chair firmly with iron nails, and took out a shotgun pointing directly at Vina's head with the shotgun's trigger tied to a string that connected to the doorknob of the room. After finishing all this, Nail sealed Vina's mouth so that Vina had no way to cry out. As long as the room door was pulled open by someone, her head would be blown off by a gunshot. Afterward, Nail dialed the police phone and stated that there were several bodies here that needed them to come and handle. At this time, Lewis and his brother also finally found the place where Vina was located. It turned out that Vina was still not in this room. And just as they entered, the phone inside rang, and the caller was precisely Nail, who had been monitoring the movements of the two all along. At this moment, Lewis suddenly heard Nail's speaking voice coming from next door. And at this point, he finally understood that Nail and Vina were right next door in room 18. In order to rescue Vina, Lewis had Fuller round to the back of the room to check the situation while he himself stayed here to hold Nail back. Who would have known that? Just as Fuller reached the back window, he was caught by Nail. And hearing the commotion, Lewis quickly rushed to the door of room 18. Opened the door. Lewis quickly let go and ran toward the back window, only to see Nail driving away while Fuller was hung on a fence nearby. Lewis attempted to rescue him, but discovered that Fuller's thigh had already been hooked by a sharp hook. At the exact same time, the police also arrived at the motel, and due to the lack of exact information, they began to break open the doors one by one. Vina, tied up in the room, was terrified to the extreme, knowing that if this continued, she would inevitably face death. At the critical moment, Lewis finally rescued Fuller, and immediately after, he quickly rushed into room 18. And in the very last second before the police opened the door, successfully tackled Vina, saving her just like this. But just as the two sides were confronting each other, Lewis suddenly heard Fuller shouting loudly for help. So he quickly led the police and rushed to the backyard. They saw a truck driving straight toward Fuller, and seeing the urgency of the situation, the police pulled the trigger on the spot. When the police opened the truck door, the driver had already been shot dead, and on the back seat of the truck, there was also a woman tied up, who was precisely Vina's friend, Charlotte. After everything came to a close, Lewis asked the police about the driver's identity, and the police said the other party was a driver for an ice company. Hearing these words, Lewis instantly had an ominous premonition, and just at this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in the radio inside the car. The movie ended here. Brothers, you have all watched this film already, right? It is indeed quite good, and the moral is also reasonably excellent. Some jokes really cannot be made carelessly because once you touch upon the taboos deep within someone else's heart, the consequences can be unimaginable.